I wasn't sure what to speak about. I didn't know what I was supposed to say to a group of men and women who in some cases had dedicated the last 4 years of their lives studying to become professionals. And then it dawned on me that yours was not an easy task. When we go to university and we think 4 or 5 years ahead based on the program that we enter for, we start thinking about whether we have the academic ability to make it through, whether we are sufficiently empowered of brain matter that will cause us in 4, 5, 6 years to be seated in a hall like this to be called graduates. That is what it ordinarily is. You had the additional burden of being faced with extracurricular matters to decide whether you would be here. There was the possibility that the school could be closed at any time. So you had to be thinking at nights when you were studying, should I study any further about AIMU, or should I seek to move out to somewhere else? And so yours was, as the game show says, double jeopardy. So I can't imagine what it was like for you. That you are here today is testimony not to just what the chairman said about the ability of your lecturers. I accept that. But I go further and say you are here today because you, the graduates, are extraordinary students. This wasn't something, and I know there's at least one police officer here, but we shall not say anything. I would urge you not to act in your professional capacity in the way those who acted against AIMU acted. Those who acted against AIMU, as we say in the Caribbean, got a vibe. They just woke up one morning and they got a vibe. And they used that vibe to say, after they had done the damage, I will get the evidence to back up that vibe. It doesn't work that way as doctors. A doctor must get the evidence first, and then he prescribes. What they did was to prescribe and then seek the evidence to see if the medicine they have prescribed suits that ailment. That's not how it works. You as doctors now must check out the patient. You must have a dialogue with that patient. You must find out the history of that patient. Because so many ailments have so many symptoms that are similar to each other. It's only after you do that historical background you can decide whether it is Zika or chikungunya, because the initial stages are so similar. And only then can you prescribe. So I would urge you to take the example, as negative as it was over the last 4 years, and to use that in the most positive way you can moving forward. You must say, in this case, I will do not what they taught me, I will do what they didn't teach me, which is to do the right thing. You have a determination to succeed that will ensure each and every one of you is successful. I'm not sure if it was the chairman or the dean who mentioned about the rapport you must have with your patient. A doctor once told me 90% of recovery is confidence in the medical practitioner, not the medication. And he explained this to me in a real-life situation about this gentleman who had what he said was migraine. And his wife was actually a nurse. And she prescribed a painkiller. And he insisted he was getting worse, so he went to see a doctor. The wife told the doctor what she had done. The doctor took his notes, and after about 20 minutes, the doctor prescribed some tablets, which he gave him. 3 days later, he returned to the doctor, cured, and asked the doctor the secret. And the doctor said, I gave you the exact tablets your wife gave you. He actually had no confidence in his wife. He had every confidence in the doctor. And it is said that curative medicine is 90% of the confidence that the patient retains in the medical doctor. So your job is to establish rapports. You have to do that. If you don't do that, then you're in problems. Your chairman said to you, the journey doesn't end here. As David Rudder said in the Calypso, the journey now starts. It's just begun. You have to continue studying. You have to continue reading. But you must exchange ideas, because none of you by yourself knows it all. I am reminded of what one of my lecturers told me many, many years ago. He was actually Chinese. And he said, if you take in a dark room and you light a candle, that candle will be so bright as to give light to the entire room. If you take a second candle and you light it from the first candle, even though the second candle becomes just as bright as the first never loses its brilliance. So too knowledge. Your lecturers have taught you everything you know, and they lost nothing of what they knew. Because knowledge is the only thing in life that you can give all of what you have and lose nothing. So always transfer that knowledge, because each and every one of you is superior to the other in possibly one avenue of medicine. Learn from that person who is good in whatever the various subject matters are. Teach each other. That's the only way you can, as a group, excite each other. Don't see yourselves as superior to your patients. See yourself as the patient's friend, confident. Not somebody you give orders to, but somebody you tell about how to live their lives so that they can live longer lives. Don't treat people like you are superior to them and they are inferior to you. We are all, first and foremost, human beings. And your degree gives you no more than the ability to assist others. That's all your degree does. Don't look at your degree as being something that you are now Evans Cauldron MD. That MD is really about assisting other people. And the more you assist, the more gratified you will feel inside. You can make $1 million and feel wretched. And you can treat two people that you see tomorrow. You're watching CNN, or in India maybe INN or something like that, and you see the person you treated achieving something. 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Never heard about it. And I was so low, they told me, that I couldn't travel to Barbados for the treatment. And I was feeling cool. I was running around all over the place. My classmate, Dr. Stephen King, from the time we left college, had always urged me to be a blood donor. And I have some really good veins. So I always gave blood, every month. And guess what? 2006, I needed blood. I have the type that anybody can take, but I can only take that type. What's it? Is it O negative or something? Whatever it is, yeah. I needed 2 pints. Tapia Hospital had 2 pints. Imagine that. I need 2 pints of blood, and the hospital has 2 pints. So they gave it to me. I flew to Barbados the next day. I gave Dr. King a note before I was leaving, and I said to him, when I'm recovered, read it. And he smiled, because his position was the other doctors, which I didn't know then, I knew afterwards, he's not recovering. You know what the note said? I refuse to die. My God could never be a God that there are only 2 pints of blood at the hospital, that I can take it and die. It's impossible. When I went to Barbados, when I was getting the chemo, the doctor, he was actually African, Dr. Akim Abayomi, he had about 20 patients. And everybody was turning away because they had this philosophy about chemo was doing this to you and chemo was doing that to you. I said, Doc, give it to me. And he asked my permission to videotape the 6 sessions. I gave it to him. I think on the 3rd, you're supposed to lose your hair. I took a bet with him that my hair was going to grow. And it did. I'm possibly the only person who took chemo and didn't lose his hair. It was the power of positive thinking. My final treatment was an experimental drug, which 3 milligrams was $50,000 US, which you took over an 8-hour period. 3 milligrams. You doctors know what 3 milligrams is. If you're going to take it over 8 hours, it tells you how strong it is. Otherwise, just inject you and move on. I took it, and it was so powerful and so good, it targeted only the bad cells, not the usual treatment that killed everything in its way. When I was leaving, the doctors gave me a note and told me I'll know when to use the note. When I got to Grantley Adams International Airport, and I took the chemo about 8 to 4, so I was traveling about 6 o'clock. And there was this lady about 5 people ahead of me. She was literally stripped down to her bra, and she was still setting up the machine. And nobody could figure out what. Eventually, it was traced to me because the last treatment was radioactive. So I was the one triggering the machine 5 people away from her. So that's what the note was about, to give it to the customs people to say, I wasn't carrying any legal problem, any legal stuff. But I say this to you, to tell you, you must develop the rapport. I believed in my doctor. I believed that when he told me I would make it, not knowing he was speaking to other doctors saying I wouldn't make it. It was about what he was telling me that was important. Because no doctor is supposed to tell the patient, well, no matter what I do for you, you're going to die tomorrow. Your Hippocratic oath allows you to lie sometimes in that regard. It allows you to tell patients the things that will make the patient's last few days, if in fact that's what it's going to be, peaceful. It does not give you the right to tell the patient, that's it, I'm pulling the plug out. So that's not your job. So I relate this personal story to you so that you too can understand it's never over until it's over. In January 2012, by that time, Dr. Abayomi had been called to one of the top hospitals in South Africa as a consultant. And he heard that I had been elected as the president of the St. Lucia Senate. And he flew from South Africa for 2 days just to witness my installation, because I was supposed to be the miracle person. And that is what your chairman was talking about when he says he wants to be watching the news and see one of you doing some great things on television. He wants to read about you. And he talked about Pakistan. These are the areas that some of you, no matter where you come from, you must volunteer to go and serve there. These are the areas. I'll tell you something I learned about Pakistan, actually. It's safe. We were supposed to go to a conference, a parliamentarians' conference, and eventually, wherever I travel to, I study about the country. And I found out what Pakistan means. I didn't know. It turns out that the STAN in these parts means land. So Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, Pakistan, it means land. And the way Pakistan was formed, the 4 major tribes are the Pashtuns, the Afghans, the Kurds, and the Indians. Hence, Pakistan. P-A-K-I, Stan. So, I didn't know that. But it tells you that it's an ever-evolving world. It's a world where knowledge is infinite. You can never have enough of it. I thirst for knowledge. I read every night. I try to read a book every 2 days about everything. I possibly know more about the St. Lucia Police Force than any police officer, because I'm a product of the police force. My entire education was financed by the police because my father was a police officer. So I read about those things. I want to urge you to read not only medical journals, because even in the most obscure places, you will find inspiration. I'll tell you where I found mine. I looked at a broken clock, and I realized that that broken clock had the correct time twice every day. Thank you very much.